about looking to the future? Say, if we have this conversation, 3 years from now, and what would we be talking about for business rules management software? What does the future hold? Ken, what's your take on that? Where is this going? This sector going?
Well, I think from an architectural point of view, which is something I would be more familiar with, is everything will be SaaS-based. I think that people will want so much access to their data, and like I've said before, on any device and any place. I think that these solutions are going to be cloud-based or SaaS-based, and you'll be able to pick up any device and get access to your data, and the rules that are happening right now in your business. So I think that's going to be the trend. I think the old school way of doing things with an internal system, I guess walled off from the world, is going to go the way of the dinosaur. I think that cloud-based BRMS solutions are going to be the future.
Dana, your sense of the future, looking at your crystal ball, what will we be talking about for BRMS a few years from now?
Yeah, I think the profile and importance of rules and rules management and process management are going to get significantly greater and higher in people's thinking, become more top of mind. And that's because when you do finally evolve towards some sort of a hybrid cloud with a lot of SaaS and PaaS mixed in environment, what defines your company? What defines your company is the relationships between those assets and resources, and the way that you manage a relationship between a supplier or a partner. And those rules need to be really well managed, defined, and reused, and extensible and protected. We didn't talk too much about risk and compliance issues. So as the benefits and productivity of things like cloud grow and we adopt them, where the resources reside and how they're supported on what hardware, software, platform, or framework is less relevant, but the relationships become more important. And what defines my organization as a company is the rules that bind me to processes, to work, to assets, resources, groups of people, and other enterprises themselves. Therefore, this is becoming, I think, a much more important and essential part of any enterprise, is good process, rules, management, and definition, extensibility, capability, and skills.
Connie, your sense of the future of BRMS, where is this going?
Yeah, I'd like to follow on to that and talk about a really, I think, significant development, which is, in fact, we've alluded to it, sort of the next generation development platform. And there's a whole body of thought that I agree with, that the whole boundary of business process management has gotten so squishy, it's spilled over into other areas. So you have the combination of a business process management suite with a business rules engine that also has analytics and collaboration and social and document management and output management, and you can kind of go on with this list. And what is happening now are vendors that make these platforms. Oh, there goes my dog, I'm sorry.
Is he a BRMS expert, by the way?
Yeah, he's an expert on food.
Okay, good.
But these vendors that have these platforms, these expanded platforms, they are now building out-of-the-box apps, and they are having their partner channel build out-of-the-box apps, and they can be cross-industry, they can be industry-specific. And so what I see is just this plethora of new apps that are going to come out that have business rules in them, and are going to have business process in them and analytics in them. And one of the key elements of these new out-of-the-box apps, and I'm not talking about mobile apps, I mean applications, right, is change. Support for changing your rules, support for changing your processes, support for changing the data that you're monitoring coming from big data. And I think this is going to be an explosion There are going to be so many new applications, and they're all going to be based upon a much more flexible, adaptable platform. I think it'll be exciting times.
Interesting. Anchor, your sense of the future of BRMS? Where is this going?
Right. I think I agree a lot with what the experts have said. I think cloud is definitely a big play. Over the next several years, I think people will try to figure out what going to the cloud would really mean, whether it's as a service play or just hosted in a cloud or a private cloud environment. But I think also, if you look at the way rule engines exist today, right? We talk about either rule engines are a good fit if you've got constantly changing rules, and either they're large or they're overly complex. And I think as we go on, as this rule engines, as customers become more aware of rule engines, there would be a big push towards simplifying the UI, not from a business IT perspective, but from an extent where, what about those customers where the rules aren't constantly changing? What happens with those customers where the rules aren't overly complex, but they still want to be able to use a rules engine with a relatively simpler UI? I think that would be a really critical play as well. And I think last piece would be just figuring out this big data piece. I think once all these data sources get connected, I was in a region a couple of weeks ago where one of the biggest problems they said was our data sources are not connected. So rules engine, we don't even think of using a rules engine because today we need data from 10 different data sources. So we have to print out reports and individually look at those 10 different reports. There's no way that data is getting connected. And I think once that begins to happen, you'll see a lot more adoption of these rules coming into play and decisions being automated.
Yeah, that middle point there, if I'm understanding you correctly, you talked about simpler applications for a business that has simpler needs.
Right.
Is that you're talking about a different application altogether, or one application that can scale up in simplicity or complexity?
Either one. I think it doesn't really matter. What I was trying to say was rules shouldn't be thought of as overly complex and either a large volume or constantly changing rules, right? If you have rules that aren't constantly changing every 3 months or 6 months, right? Maybe they're changing on an annual basis. Anytime you're building a new application, you should be thinking about, well, where's my logic going to reside? Should it reside in the form of a code, or should it reside in the form of a rules engine? And when you start building out those applications which have a relatively simpler logic, you would still be able to use those rules engines because over the next several years, they've been so much simplified for those use cases.
Makes sense. All right. Well, that's a lot of good stuff. I think someone learned something along the way. I know I did. I appreciate the four of your expertise, and I'll send you a link. We can all tweet it. Thank you very much for joining us.
Thank you.
All right.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks.